Well, howdy there, partner. Welcome to another episode of Crizzy Books. I'm Crizzy, or Chris, but only my lonesome doves call me Chris. Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. This is the epic western tale of our time. In Lonesome Dove, we follow many characters as they traverse the harsh and brutal landscape of a post-Civil War, pre-industrial America. Our main honchos are Gus and Call. They're former Texas Rangers who are currently residing at a horse corral. They run it outside of the town of Lonesome Dove. And they decide that it would be a good idea to all of a sudden pack up everything, get a herd of cattle and a bunch of cowhands together, and they're going to make the trek from Texas all the way up to Montana, stake their claim on the land because not very many people are there, and they should be set after that. They won't have to do anything else, right? With their gang together, some new friends, some old. They also have a local whore who's traveling with them. Her name's Lorena, and she has become pretty close with one of their old buddies, Jake Spoon, who promises to take her to San Francisco, and, they get married, all this stuff. None of that's going to happen. Along the way, we encounter many trials, tribulations, extreme weather, deadly foes, Indians, crooked military men, snakes, bears, and so much more. We also get to know our main cast very intimately, as well as bringing other side characters into the fold, and it all culminates into a very heartfelt and heart-stomping finale that really leaves you at a loss and wondering what it was all really for in the first place. And wow, what a great book. I'm a big fan of the Western genre. I always make sure to have quite a few on my current to-be-read list. I think it's the American myth that I love. Man's attempt to try to dominate this really harsh landscape, and oftentimes failing. This particular book I've been aware of from a very young age. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a TV miniseries, and I think that my parents, as well as all my friends' parents and grandparents, all had the Lonesome Dove VHS box set. I've never watched it, so I went into this completely blind. I have no idea what this story was about. It was just recommended to me by a lot of people, influenced by a lot of influencers, and so I think it was finally time that I dove in. This book is very, very long. Very long, but it also doesn't feel as long as it actually is, and that's due to McMurtry's really great writing and character work. But for this being such a long book, I have a lot to say about it, so let's get into it. In terms of where this book succeeds, I think that the character work is at the peak of that mountain. This is one of the best character-driven books I've ever read. By the end of this story, you feel so deeply connected to so many of them that it kind of hurts when the book finally, stops. And there's certain cases where it hurts to see some of these even side characters die. And really the joy you feel when some of them actually get, a glimmer of hope, or you see them experiencing something that they should, in Lorena's case especially. I also love that it just doesn't shy away from the brutality and the unforgiving nature of America at this time. Our characters really do go through the ringer. For instance, struck by lightning, attacked by Indians, killed by snakes. That's just 3, but there's way more than that. Awful things happen to them, and it's tough to get through at times, and I just love that McMurtry didn't pull any punches, and he, this is a realistic portrayal of what life was like at that time and how dangerous this cattle drive from Texas to Montana really was. The way that the book is written, it's almost like one giant tangent, and at first this really annoyed me. I didn't like it. I felt very unfocused, but by the end of it, it made a lot of sense and it all came together, and I really admire it. You'll be focused on one character at the beginning of a chapter, and in the middle of it, a conversation that character has with another character will then go into this other character thinking about something that happened to them. It rounded out these characters in a way that I haven't really read before, where You're getting bits and pieces of information through side conversations or memories, and it adds a lot of depth to characters that you wouldn't expect to have gotten that out of. But since this is such a character-driven story, let's talk about the characters that I liked and the characters that I didn't like. So start off with the characters that I liked. At the top of that list is Gus. Obviously, it's Gus. It's really a no-brainer. He's the heart and soul of this book, and the comedy relief, and I loved him. He's awesome. He's the shit. I also really like Dietz a lot as a side character. He's just super capable, kind of like strong silent type, but he just knows his stuff, and he keeps everybody as safe as he can. Roscoe, for a side character and being such an idiot, I really enjoyed his side quest and like meeting of Janie and everything that happens with them. It was a very brief part of the book, but I really liked them. Like, they were such standouts for me. And I was really upset when they died. Newt also has a ton of growth throughout this. He starts off as this very, I don't have a father, I'm not sure, kind of a lost guy with nobody to really look up to, and really looking for a connection either with one of the guys or with a woman. I mean, he needs some kind of emotional connection with somebody, and by the end of it, it's just so heartbreaking to know, what's happened and who his father is and what his father is doing and all this stuff. The book keeps building up to this eventual like father-son moment between Call and Newt, and it never happens, and it sucks. Characters I didn't like. Jake Spoon, very obvious, womanizer, drunk piece of shit, and he absolutely deserved what happened to him. I have no remorse for anything that happened to Jake. Blue Duck, very obvious why you wouldn't like him. I think that makes him a really great character, but he's bad. Bad. Elmira, selfish bitch, did not like her character at all. She causes a lot of problems for some of our side characters, and they don't deserve that. Call. And hear me out on this one, but Call. Now, I don't hate Call as a character. He's one of my favorite ones in the book. He just drove me nuts. He's such a coward. Really, the whole reason that all of this happens in the first place, Call is clearly just restless, and he misses that kind of roughneck life of being a Texas Ranger and being to roam around and get into fights and the excitement. He needs that. He can't stand this kind of sitting around at the corral every day, with Gus talking about nothing. He needs something more than that, and that's okay. But there's so much heartache and death and pain that occurs on this cattle drive, and it didn't really need to happen. This was all just Call trying to have some excitement in his life. And that's kind of the big difference between Gus and Call. Gus is content with this life on this cattle ranch in Lonesome Dove. He's fine with it. They've done their adventures. He's ready to settle down and just enjoy the rest of his remaining years. But Call just cannot seem to do that. And then with all of this stuff with Newt and him knowing that he's Newt's father, but just kind of completely running away from that constantly. I mean, quite literally running away from that at the end. Just to go all the way back to Lonesome Dove, like, you did all this and now you're going back, like, dude, what the hell? Yeah, he was an incredibly frustrating character for me. Thematically, there's tons that you can take away from this book. Obviously, at the top of that is like just strength and masculinity, and, it wouldn't be a Western without that. But there's also feminine strength as well. Lorena is an incredibly strong character. She goes through so much. Her trauma started before this little stupid cattle drive, and it just gets worse from there. And she comes out of the other side of it and is able to find a life that has meaning for her and where she feels like she's supposed to be. And I think that she finds a kind of peace and happiness that she's never really known before. Clara as well. She really understands who she is. She understands her role in her family. She's gone through so much death through the loss of children and husbands. And even with Gus's return, I'm sure it wasn't easy to kind of be like, no, we're not, this isn't happening. She's a tough old broad. And then through that kind of masculine strength, it shines a light on weakness. I mean, again, coming back to Call and the way that he just runs away from his feelings and his problems, and just a failure to admit what's going on internally for him. On the outside, he might be this tough, capable cowboy who can get in and out of scuffles, but on the inside, he's a wreck. and just completely emotionally incapable. There's also themes of, obviously, survival, love, death. There's just so much to pull out of it, and I could probably talk about it for an hour. I don't really want to, though. I think that this is a perfect book. I really do. It's definitely like the quintessential Western novel that I would recommend anybody read, whether you like Westerns or not, especially if you like character-driven stories. It's the best. And when I was writing this review and, looking back on reading it, it brought back so many like feelings and emotions from when I was actually reading it that I had kind of forgotten about, and just kind of reignited this like, yeah, wow, goddamn, this book is so good. And it just ended up making me like it even more than I probably already did. Overall, I'm giving Lonesome Dove 5 out of 5. I think if you have any interest in Westerns at all, I would start here. If you don't have interest in Westerns, you should still read this. The bar is set very, very high with this one. It's just a hoot and a holler, y'all. But what do you think? Have you read Lonesome Dove? Sound off in the comments below. If you're on Goodreads or Fable, you can follow me on both. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and as always, thank you for watching. Bye now.